Are we live? We're live. All right.
Live.
Thanks everyone for joining today. Hey Tim, good to see you again. All right. Thanks everybody for joining today. Exciting day. I'm coming from OpTech. And so obviously a ton of conversations around technology and solutions and problems and a drip on in terms of like obviously turns, maintenance, operations, retention. There's a ton of buzz around all these different ways to solve these problems. It's always an exciting conference. And HRC. Retzi has done an amazing job. I can make sure I'm citing the right organization. Retzi's done an amazing job in kicking the whole thing off, and it's been great to connect people prior to the holidays. So thanks everyone for joining. Again, get to hell yes. Tim Wallace from zInspector. Here's the exciting thing is that when we talk about inspections and operations and field work, there's obviously a ton of gaps in there, ton of opportunity. I would say there's a significant amount of opportunities to improve the experience for both the resident and both for the field tech. And I don't think there's a single person that you can talk to who is has a debatable position on the opportunity to solve the problem in that space. The interesting thing is getting into the hell yes with respect to selling and moving operational technologies. And as you know, on this show, we talk about buyers that are ready to buy. They've identified their problem. Maybe they've tried some things in the past, and they might not know how zInspector or our solution or any solution works, but they've been trying to do it the old way. They're frustrated with that, and so they're seeking a new alternative. And when we're out there selling in the world, we're obviously want to find those buyers because they're activated, they're ready to go. Maybe they've already got a budget in hand. Maybe they've already tried something and it worked, and they're seeking alternatives. When we have those conversations, we really want to activate them and understand the problems they're seeking to solve. We know they're not just tire kicking. And those are the ones we love to chat to from a yes perspective. And the show has always been about who can we talk to that have been in these roles that are identifying these buyers and they're fast-growing their companies, because that's where we want to kind of share this knowledge with everybody around how are we going to solve this problem. Because what's Tim and I chatted in the preamble is that buyers don't want to be sold to any longer. They've got a long list of problems. They've got a priority of things they need to address. And a new idea is something they'll consider down the road, but ultimately they have a to-do list that's fixed and finite and has to be done by a certain period of time. And we want to find those buyers versus trying to persuade other buyers to do something different. And that's kind of like a really natural way of getting to yes. So with that, and before I forget, if you listen to the podcast, obviously appreciate your comments and to favorite, et cetera, download that and subscribe, because that's going to make it a whole lot easier for people to find the show. And then if you're listening to it live, we love the engagement. Engagement is awesome. Feel free to ask any questions all along the way, and we'll get to those as they come up. It's brought to you by IRCX. We're remote, inspection and maintenance triage software. We help people solve work orders faster, turn faster, and scope quicker. And thrilled today to have Tim to have a healthy conversation about inspection and what this means to the industry, what's possible, what you think about for 2026, and how you get into hell yes. So as we always start the show off, I'm going to pass it back to Tim for a bit of your background, Tim, how you got in this role, why in God's name would you want to start a company or be a part of a startup, and then ultimately the problem that you're solving for your buyer. So we kind of think, and we'll scrum on that for a little bit as we go along. But so pass it back to you, Tim. Thanks for coming on the show today. Can't wait to chat today.
Yeah, my pleasure. As I say, why get involved in a startup? Man, I've been involved in way too many startups. Am I a masochist?
I know. I'm going to say, oh, you're a serial entrepreneur. I'm like, when people use the word serial, it's usually never in a positive term. Like there's no, if you type in serial in Google, the result set, maybe only one could be considered positive. Everything else is bad. So I like to walk away from that, divorce myself from that term altogether.
Yeah. I mean, in full transparency, though, I'm not the owner and CEO of this one, but
yes.
I have been jumping in kind of in early stages. This is, I think, my fourth one that I've jumped in on. So, yeehaw.
There you go.
But yeah, I got my start in the tech world back in 2014. Joined a little Salesforce add-on called InsideSales.com. It's SalesLoft competitor back when those guys were going crazy and everything. That was my first instance as an SDR. I've got vivid memories of my first few phone calls that I made in Salesforce and with a dialer and all that stuff. So worked my way up into a management role over there. And actually, one of my guys that was on my team at one point in 2018, he was with an alarm.com group called Point Central. And he recruited me over there. So I joined Point Central in 2018 on the prop tech side of things. That was my intro to that side, and worked with them primarily on the SFR side of things, was helping build that aspect of the industry up, or it was essentially a startup within a publicly traded company. And they're still going crazy over there. Love that team.
Oh yeah.
And that was where I kind of discovered my love for partnerships and integrations in that piece. We had at Point Central, we were tied in with Tenant Turner. And so Tenant Turner built some great relationships with those guys. And during COVID was looking for a little bit of a change when Point Central kind of shifted to focus on MDU. I fell in love with SFR. So I was like, I want to stay in this. And my guys over at Tenant Turner said, well, hey, we got a spot for you. So
nice.
Spent 4 years over there with those guys. Love that. The couple of roles that I got to do over there, I shifted from sales into marketing a bit. Helped build that side of the team out with really being strategic with marketing and different types of campaigns and whatnot. And then as most people know, Tenant Turner got acquired by the company. I saw some writing on the wall like, hey, acquisition happened. I'm going to make another shift. And that was when I kind of made an announcement. And Andy Wallace, no relation to me, but happens to be the owner and CEO of zInspector, reached out and goes, hey, there's no way you're leaving the industry. I'd love to have you over here. So kind of a match made.
Nice.
Shifted over here, jumped onto this team, and here we are. It's been amazing. I jumped into helping with marketing right off the bat, but I'm also over on partners and helping build those more relationships within zInspector and our tons of companies that we're working with. And as everyone knows in prop tech, if you can get as many integrations and get as many of these systems speaking to each other as possible to simplify the entire process and workflow for these customers, that's how their success comes.
Yeah, it's a big, huge gap. Like, look at the topics that are happening in the show today, this week. I mean, the roadblock to success is nested in the ability to integrate. And it's interesting. RealPage just announced an integration. I think it was this week or last week, maybe. Yeah, this week or last week. Like their integration platform, and the partners are coming into it. And it's frustrating as an innovator to try and work with these incumbents, given the kind of taxation that's put upon these integrations. And not only is it from a cash flow perspective or expense perspective, but in addition, the kind of like architectures aren't necessarily oriented for integrations. And so it's like a really kind of narrow, instead of being the front door, it's a narrow back side door with a password, and you got to grease the doorman to be able to get in. And then you got to figure out if this is going to work. And so it's kind of it's a frustrating problem that's being felt by all people.
Yep. 100%. And it's like we just mentioned, like you come into the space as a startup, you're not necessarily thinking right off the bat, oh, I need all these integrations. And so having that as another one of your pain points as your company grows, it's an adventure. It's fun.
Yep. And so you talked a little about partnerships. And so your background in partnerships and integrations, so how does that work with, so let's kind of back up the problem that you're solving. So highest level, zInspector, what's the problem you guys solve? And is it specifically for SFR? Like, where do you guys sell best?
We're primarily SFR right now. We do have quite a few multifamily customers as well that are having success in mixed portfolios. But yeah, it's essentially anyone that's concerned about property awareness and wants really great documentation to protect themselves and their clients. And the residents, honestly, too.
Oh, yeah. Are you finding that there's a big, huge, like especially in Q4, there's a bit of a panic going on with respect to catching up on inspections?
There's been a lot of people that have seen the pain points of this last turn season. There's actually been quite a few states that passed additional legislation around photo requirements and whatnot. So quite a few operators are going back and reviewing, okay, what did we miss here? What gaps do we have? How can we do better next year? And, anyone that has had to deal with things like if residents moving out and you've got the wonderful reconciliation of laws, that stuff. Those property managers and operators that didn't necessarily hit the mark that they were hoping for with those move outs and being able to hold everyone accountable and cover their owners. I know there's probably quite a few owners that were surprised. I mean, everyone's expressed over the last few years, maintenance costs, turnover costs, things are going up. And so this last season was one with quite a bit of change. And these last couple of years have been really more volume than we really saw much during COVID. So those numbers are constantly shifting for people right now.
Especially with the number of SFR units that are on the market, right? So you've got like 14, 15 million that are out there. And I understand that some are coming off market in terms of the accidental landlords are taking them back over. but nonetheless, it's still a big number. And there's still a lot of turnover in those units. That's creating demand for solutions like yourself. Do you find that like when you're talking to the SFR owners, like given the, I think one thing maybe not everyone sees this or understands this, but like you've got about, like I said, 14 million, and let's imagine that like 500,000 are professionally managed. Like you think of the top five, maybe 500.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's
around there. And then you dial that back to the other 13.5 that are unprofessionally managed, and they're being, it's one thing for Tricon or Progress or Invitation to absorb a compliance regulation, but if you've got like 30 or 40 homes, and maybe they're even somewhat scattered, that is a significant burden and change your operations, particularly if you're in Colorado and all of a sudden January 1st you've got to change the way you do things, and you should have changed what you did 90 days, I guess 45 days ago, and that's now you're doing things in retrospect. Where do you find people are landing on that prioritization? I mean, I realize it's compliance, okay. I realize it's the right thing to do, okay. But like, is it still a priority for folks to adopt the changes? Are you finding it?
Yeah, I'd say right now is actually kind of our sweet spot. We don't see a lot of shift during busy season, and people start analyzing right around beginning of what we call conference season in the industry. I'll take one of the later ones here. We do a lot with NARPM right now too. So NARPM had a whole bunch of their regional conferences and their convention in October. Lots of people are analyzing different solutions right now. I know we've had some of our busiest sales weeks over the last month or so because of that type of engagement. But yeah, we will probably see a nice big influx of things all the way up until most people, in my experience, especially in the third-party management side of things, try to get those things done by February or March of next year. Because if they're scrambling for a solution next April, you're late to the chase, guys. Like that's too late for next business season. Get those solutions in as soon as possible, so you could really get your systems and operations in place as much as possible, and have some time to practice even before then.
Yeah, for sure. When they're seeking to solve the inspection problem, what's the reason why it's not working today?
That's the fun part where there's literally, it goes from people using paper still, which is just laughable.
Yeah, it is. It is totally. I had one customer, they do like 10,000 units. This is low rise, and they it's a sticky note. You can literally leave a sticky note on the door. It's done. Like I was like, oh my gosh, really? Of all the things that are available today. No, yeah, 100%, right? So what do you hear? Like, what are people doing?
So a lot of the big things that are changing right now too is we've heard a lot of people, AI is the biggest topic out there. Everyone's talking about AI. But also like within maintenance and inspection teams, like really, how do you drive efficiency with teams where everyone might be doing things a little bit differently? So with our platform, we try to make it so that everyone is doing things the same way with the same types of templates, so that the team can across the entire, across our entire team. But on the flip side, we are, our owner and CEO is, I like to call him sometimes a mad scientist. He has been on the development and engineering side of things for his entire career. And he was one of the early adopters of AI before really ChatGPT and things like that, back when it was called machine learning. It was coming into the space. And so he's really done some cool stuff with building that into our system, so that in order to drive efficiency within inspections, the AI is allowing people, instead of going through and taking pictures and manually adding notes and marking conditions and generating work orders manually, we're allowing people now to take videos of areas where we narrate it. The images are constantly being analyzed by AI. The video, we have a cool little thing where we call it zAssistant, is letting you know when it's taking photos as you're speaking. And as you're going, basically zAssistant is filling out the entire inspection report for you with verbiage, with the right photos, the right documentation. That really keeps things uniform across your entire team, so that if Inspector A, who might be, in his 20s, maybe he's new, a little bit fresh, doesn't quite know everything, says things a little bit weird, our AI is able to kind of read through what he's saying and get him the same type of documentation that maybe Inspector B, who's been with your company for 10 years and is really on top of every single little thing, it might be catching that Inspector A is missing for you.
How do you find that, given the kind of the status quo of, like, let's say using sticky notes or using whatever, Like, why would somebody consider change? Like, what's going wrong with their current system, their current choices, that they're like, I got to get some software to do this?
Yeah, I mean, ease of use and efficiency is really the driving force that we're hearing a lot. Like, how do we
Hmm.
become more efficient with inspections? Because, like you're saying, scatter site management, if you're having to drive all over the place.
Hmm.
Another complaint that we're getting from a lot of folks is being able to have the software work while they're offline.
Sure.
That's within SFR. Uh, a lot of companies out there, even especially if you're using the one that's built into your accounting software, if you're using those inspection types of services, they require to be online all the time. So
Hmm.
with our solution, that's another thing that we provide. Everything just syncs back up when you get in there, and you're not having to go through your own photo roll and get memories next year
Yeah.
of a toilet from your move out.
Yeah. 100%. No, you definitely don't want that. And when you guys are using that, do you guys send out is it your own inspectors or your own 1099s, or is it the operators, or how does that work?
No, so this is a platform that we provide to the operators themselves for them or their
Yeah.
teams to use. We do have quite a few people that are working with third parties to do those
Mhm.
inspections for them, and so I'm actually working right now on some conversations to potentially offer that as a solution in the future as well.
Mhm.
The inspector, we'd love to build out a field network of people to help by using zInspector software to complete inspections for people. Right now,
Mhm.
there's some awesome solutions out there. So shout out to my good friend Phil Owen at On-Site Pros. He's one of the best
Mhm.
educators when it comes to property awareness as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting model, right? Like, I'm not saying that there's a right place for the combination of a software and a service, but there's also benefits to having the software move independently than from the services,
Yep.
because you end up having kind of like a healthy tension between the objectives. Like, if you have the service and the software bundled in a single package, it can be like you may have misplaced interests versus if the software has an interest to automate and use less people, then ultimately that's going to achieve a better outcome for the buyer versus a motivation to continue to use people to be able to solve the problem.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, and at the same time, that's one of those things too, where it's like, I don't think we'd ever really build it inside with our own team to do that. Ask any
Mhm.
operator around the country, how is it maintaining a team that does go out to these properties, a maintenance team
Mhm.
themselves? Like, there's just so much involved with that side of things. Like, we'll stick to our bread and butter, which is the platform and the
Mhm.
software itself. Our goal is we'd love to build out a network, but yeah, at least find a way to tie those two things together to make that solution better for the end user in the end.
Well, and that might not be the right answer, right, for your customers to build your own network. Like, it might overcomplicate the offer where they have their own. Because I think the nice thing about being a pure software offer is that
Yeah.
your buyer has a choice to use their own people, use their
Yep.
own model. Like, there's no conflict of interest there. I mean,
100%.
service revenue is going to exceed software revenue from a dollars perspective, but ultimately it's not the game you're playing. So it's interesting to kind of to hear that, to share that kind of mutual. I don't know. Like, this is the tug between the two different outcomes,
Yeah.
because like being a software player, there's no doubt about it that there's software assisted services is a bona fide revenue model, but ultimately, and especially in this business, giving the an SFR, given the variety of the different types of owners and buyers, it can become complicated if you're trying to
Oh
offer
yeah.
a one single solution for everybody,
Oh yeah.
right?
Complicating a solution. Oh, it's like, you know, ask anyone in this space, like selling software itself can be complicated enough with all the different
Yeah.
stakeholders involved in that process. Adding one more to the table. Yeah. That's not to say like, sure, there's people that want it, but yeah, that adding that to that is definitely going to be a more complicated process in terms of getting that hell yes at the end.
Yes. So you're looking at like the problem. So, their considerations is they've looked at their existing systems. Things are moving slower. Now, is it they want to get efficient to save? And this can be a bit of a controversial question, because there's the kind of what feels to be the right answer, but then there's actually the answer that creates like a buy.
Mhm.
Like, it feels as though the right answer is I want to use software to do my inspections because I can save time, I can save money. We're what are you seeing that? I'll try. I don't want to lead the answer, but like, or is the answer that we're not getting inspections done?
That's a good question. Ooh, off the top of my head, I'm hearing both of those a lot. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it really is like inspections are being done, but not as effectively as they can be. Is what like the big I'm hearing is like the requirement is there. It always has to be done in some format. It's just they're not good enough. Like I was saying in the beginning, they missed the mark in terms of that reconciliation at the end. Like if they can't prove that tenant damage was tenant damage, that owner is stuck with that extra cost. And that's the biggest complaint we're hearing from people is, yes, it got done. Documentation wasn't necessarily correct, or maybe something got mixed up. Our solution is really cool, providing side-by-sides with like the move in and move out. But at the same time, documentation isn't done effectively, you're missing, and there's a gap there that's going to affect everyone in the process.
Well, especially in SFR, because deposit reconciliation is much more expensive than in multifamily, right? I mean, the legislation's out there from a multifamily perspective, but SFR, like, it's just so much more complex of an animal. I mean, you've got interior, exterior, you've got basements, or maybe you don't. You've got AC in the roof. You get all sorts of things that are all complex, and the damage can be much more severe every unit.
And those time frames on top of it too. Like, there's every single state has a different time frame on it. Like Georgia, for instance, has you have 3 days from the day of that move out to get things back to the resident. It's like, what?
Yeah, how am I going to do that, right? Especially if you don't have enough people to do the work, and I'm competing with data centers to find the inspectors. How am I going to get this all done and get it done right, so I can actually stand up and say, hand on heart, this is the reconciliation between the before and the after.
Yep.
Do you find that, like, when you're out there and let's say you're competing against, let's say the conventional way of doing things, what kind of objections do you tend to hear from the operators or from owners, from your buyers?
I mean, there's quite a few people that are saying, we've got things good enough. Like jumping in and pushing on this too much is gonna, ruffle too many feathers. A lot of maintenance teams that have operators, especially on the third party side, have had their teams in place for a while, asking their maintenance teams to do one additional thing, or even their third party maintenance providers to do one additional thing for them. And if you ask them, anyone that's got a small team, they're one property manager that might have a portfolio of 90 doors that they're trying to get on top of. This one thing can add so much more to that daily grind that it's just can be overwhelming. It's one more process that it's like, hey, if it's good enough, I'm already taking pictures, we're uploading them to a cloud. It's not that good enough. It's that, okay, how do we get you guys to the solution where you can access all that stuff anytime you need it and get those reports to whoever needs it right away? What if you do have to evict a tenant after 90 days and maybe your PM didn't upload those pictures off of their phone to the cloud, and they lost their phone in a rafting accident or something? I don't know.
Well, it's not the 95 inspections that happened like within the guidelines. It's the 5% that create vulnerability and risk.
Yep.
It's just not airtight, right?
And so when you're talking, it's huge. Like we all talk about, like, there's the potential, but like that second anything happens, it just explodes in your face. If it can really escalate really quickly.
Do you find that when you're looking at like the scope of, again, the hell yes buyer, is there usually something bad happen? Like when you ask the questions, okay, why now? Is there something case where like, well, we kind of gotten some hot water with HUD, or we kind of gotten some hot water with whatever. We got water, and we've got to kind of mitigate, and that's why we're changing things?
I hear that a little bit. Not necessarily, though. Like, that's not the hell yes customer. The hell yes customer is more along the lines of they're trying to streamline and perfect their operations and their workflows right now.
Gotcha.
We love the ones that are doing this love us. The ones that are really on top of their business and want to drive even more efficiency. A lot of them might have their own internal maintenance team. Maybe it's like a 10 to 15 person company on the third party side, for instance. They've got a few hundred doors and that side of things. Like, there's really a lot in terms of systems within the company. They're the ones that are going to be the most effective with the use of the AI, for instance, and really enhancing their entire team with those types of inputs that can really take their operations to that next level.
What's the wow moment? And I guess let's ask two questions here. What's the wow moment for the techs? What's the wow moment for the buyer?
That's a great question. For the techs, it's really like, putting that app in their hand and letting them see, okay, wait, this is everything easy. It's got all the property data I need right here. Like
Mhm.
the second they can see that everything is tied over, the beauty of those integrations, we can pull
Mhm.
all the property data over, lease information if they need to send invitations out to the residents to do their own tenant-led inspections as well. All that's right there. Once they get the app in their hand and see it, it's like, oh, this is easy. And they're all used to their own phones the cameras on their phones. And so it ties in directly with that side of things. So it's really, really user-friendly and simple to go. On the buyer side, really, what we're seeing is they love that efficiency factor. Like if we can cut inspection times down from like a 3-bed, 2-bath house from 2 hours to 30 to 45 minutes, cut that inspection time in more than half. Heck, even if we can cut that down to an hour, that's how much more efficiency on their end that they can, let those maintenance techs save that time to go actually spend some time in making sure that all those work orders are taken care of, that they've got the right vendors assigned to the right categories and everything right away, and get those things resolved as quickly as possible to make that turn process that much more efficient.
Do you find that you guys also enable like the centralization of that turn process? Like if I'm going to do, what I find interesting when you have conversations about folks in the field is that they're accustomed to tracking the checklist and then maybe coordinating the work afterwards. But when you use something like zInspector with all that data being centralized, and then ultimately you can have a maintenance coordinator that's going to quarterback the turn before the inspectors even left the unit.
Yeah,
like that cycle, that aha is like, what?
100%. And that's another awesome piece that we love with our integration partners. Like, I know we're part of the property meld vendor nexus where we've made it now so that people can create melds directly from the inspection. And then, integrations with all of our accounting softwares out there too. We can generate work orders within those systems too. So yeah, you can trade your maintenance team to go out there. It's as long as they're marking things the right way and adding the right notes, that's process. That's much more seamless and effective. And that work can get done that much faster.
It's interesting you talk about folks that are on top of their business, because maintenance is often characterized, rightly or wrongly, as being very reactive, right? But inspections is a proactive motion. And what I find interesting is that often the reactive elements of maintenance take priority over the proactive motions. And so then there's this kind of like, even if it took 2 hours, 3 hours before, and it's down to like 45 minutes, the mental allocation of effort is still like that 3 hour, 4 hours. Like if I got to send an inspector out to Athens, it's going to take them 4 hours to go do that. And so now I'm kind of like mentally, but I could get them to go solve these 3 work orders that the residents banging on the door with, banging on my, calling 3-4 times about. How do you find in your Helios buyers, where are they prioritizing inspections with respect to reactive maintenance and work orders?
Yeah, I mean, primarily like during move in, move out season, like those move-ins and move out inspections are the must-haves. That's primarily where those types of work orders will be coming in. We do have periodic inspections, like some people maybe on a quarterly basis are requiring tenants to take pictures of all of the water faucets in the property. Even that's a little reactive too, because that's a resident input. So it really does enable these teams to be a little bit more proactive. But like you said, that reactive spot is going to be there. During busy season, there's always turns happening. But yeah, if we can give them a few more minutes to handle all those reactive things to keep their residents that are sticking around happier, that's great. And then even like renewal inspections, for instance, too, that's an opportunity to get out to the property themselves and be a little more proactive and wow those residents a little bit more. But yeah, the reactive, proactive side of things, there's always going to be a little bit of intermingling there just to, that's the process of everyday operations within maintenance. Unfortunately, they're always going to be all over the place.
Do you find that like with like tech, now that we're kind of like bringing in tech to make it easier, that the number of inspections is going up?
In terms of the move-ins and move-outs, I think people are getting a lot better at it. The requirement should have always been there. And lots of states, the move-out's a requirement. Move-in is some people have a tenant do it on a paper form, things like that. I think it's really powerful if a tenant can do it within software and actually have a copy of the report for themselves with that documentation. But during make readies and things like that, a lot of times maybe the make ready inspection, you've got a 7-day window or 3-day window, maybe depending on where you're at and how fast you want to turn things. Some people don't necessarily get out there after the make ready inspection was done, where maybe you've got some takeaways you need to go do. But post make ready pre-marketing, is there an inspection happening there where you can finally mark everything as complete? That's a really powerful one that a lot of people are starting to do a lot more of. And then using even 360 cameras for that side of things too, that you can in turn use for your marketing efforts too. If you've got a really great 360 camera out there and can tie those images into, different softwares, we all get different abilities to put together a 360 tour for you. That's that much more power in your hands.
Well, and it all lands into asset management, right? Like, how are you managing the asset? How are you curating it? Because, like, ultimately in SFR, you do have that variability in the assets that it's just not as simple. Like, it's not a 2-bedroom in a multifamily unit, right? It's just a little more complicated than that, particularly when you kind of like layer in amenities and in addition to the variability of the product. And so it's having an understanding of the asset goes beyond the requirement of an inspection. It's like an observation. Like, you got to be managing these assets. What we're hearing is that, like, there's a desire now to not only, given that there's a rise of unoccupied units, right? How are we going to manage and inspect these unoccupied units, during the duration that they're untenanted? And so that is driving up the need for more inspections. Yet it's kind of like they're trying to tug with the existing options of hiring people and maybe 1099ing it to get those inspections done, and then having control over the outcome. Like, I like what you talked about before, where you have this consistent. It doesn't matter if it's W-2, 1099, a first year or a 10-year. Everyone's going to produce the same consistent inspection. And that's going to roll up to the asset manager, portfolio manager. It's going to be able to look at them kind of like in a row of a spreadsheet versus like having to look at every single document and evaluate, where is this unit at? I'm looking at a portfolio of assets instead of a unit by unit asset. Makes my life so much easier as the buyer, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that uniformity goes a long way for just simplifying even that person's job. If you can simplify everyone at the top to even the guys at the bottom, that's awesome. I hadn't thought about that way.
When you look at, like, when you're out there talking to folks on the look, they're coming to you and they looked at, not specifically other software, but like, what have they tried? Like, what have they tried? When inspections, I mean, it's when something like an inspection kind of creeps up on you from an lack of efficiency, there's a conventional approach to solving the problem. What have they typically tried before they reach out and say, I need a software to solve this?
I mean, you got the wonderful people that have all used their cell phone to take their pictures, and then all their pictures are getting clogged up with all their images and things like that. So you got a phone that's got 99% of its storage taken because they've got 500 property photos on there mixed with their personal stuff. We do have a lot of people that have kind of done good at creating their own little database within like Google Drive and things like that. You hit a critical mass where that's just not sustainable. Like, sure, you can go in there and click and find those pictures, but at what point are there, too many things that can be complicated within that system? Maybe they're growing, and one person, that's too many clicks for that person to really understand where things are going and when and whatnot to deal with that entire database. So yeah, essentially anytime anyone is overwhelmed in any way with collecting and managing all those photos and that documentation around things, I think the second you want to tie in maintenance to inspections is the perfect time to get us going as well.
I think it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the photo reel. Like, when you consider that most people's camera rolls are a disaster in their personal life, much less like now I'm going to use it for compliance purposes. Like, that just doesn't add up. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, I don't know. Like, there's just so many different metaphors that don't apply to scaling out. It's like everyone using their personal Gmail for work. Like, just wouldn't work out. Like, you just would have a mess. It's a mess by design.
Yep. And like, you can put a process behind it, but at the same time, your process is only as good as the people that are completing that process for you, right? And so all it takes is one person that maybe didn't complete everything the right way for that to blow up in your face when, like you're saying, at the end of a lease, for instance, that reconciliation comes around. Wait, where are the photos for 123 Lake Street? Why don't
from 2 years ago? From 2 years ago.
We never,
Right.
whoever was gonna, double check that. Who's
Yeah.
behind that? Oh, that was Tony. He left the company 6 months ago. Should
Yeah.
we call
And he
him?
took his phone with him. They're on Tony's personal iCloud on his, Christmas party slideshow.
Meanwhile, Tony's sitting there. Why is there a toilet in my memories? I'm deleting that picture. Tony deleted all those pictures the second he left.
100%. Oh yeah, it's so true. But it's funny because like you build these processes based on what we do personally, but they just don't scale out. Like you wouldn't sit there and go, okay, I'm gonna do this 10,000 times. No, 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 you never would. You never actually would consider that. But you kind of like it emerges out of a skunk works approach to solving things, but no one's actually written down how it happens and don't understand how they're just leaking oil all over the place with respect to kind of trying to apply it and scale it out, especially when they postpone the inspections to the very last minute because they've been doing reactive maintenance as a priority. And now we got to rush and do all this stuff. And by the way, I'm going to hire, 14 1099s and help me do this. And they're going to adopt this process that's been, put together by like, Larry Moe and Curly. When you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, right?
I need you guys to go off of this Word doc right here. Like, what?
Yeah.
How do you make that an SOP that anyone's ever going to make standard?
Yep. And by the way, it's going to stand up in court.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because we're probably going to get sued at least a little bit on this process, and so I need to get some insights on how that all comes together.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're in those Class A and B properties, like residents are always going to push back if you try to charge them on a move out. Like, no, I took good care of this property. This is a nice property. Mm-hmm. So, yep.
Oh, that's interesting. So when you're taking a look at the model that's out there, and have you already asked about objections? What kind of objections do you get when someone's like, they've gone through the path, they've realized what they're going to get to, but they decide to opt for the status quo? What's that objection sound like?
A lot of it does come down to, it can be a people problem. So like my maintenance team is just not going to do it. I can't get my team into it. Like, how do we make this so that the team is actually completing it? I work with a couple of the bigger franchise groups in the country, and had a really cool conversation with a guy out of Atlanta recently who was really on top of ensuring that his entire team like is bought in. Like that buy-in piece is really difficult for some of these, small operators that are maybe have 5 employees or even are just struggling too much to get their own standard operating procedures down. Like they're not ready to build out this perfect of a solution yet. It's the good enough is good enough for them. But at the same time, it's like, is it really? Like, how are you letting yourself down? But yeah, it most of the time it is kind of a people thing. How do we get more buy-in from? Because maintenance guys love doing things the way they do things. If you ask a guy that's been doing his own maintenance, or even in the multifamily side of things, if you ask a guy that's been on site with one property for 5 years to change how he's doing things, he's probably the one that's most objectionable, has the most objections to any sort of that change. He's like, I'm doing this just fine. Like, why are we doing this?
Well, an interesting thing. I think there's 2 perspectives on that. I think that to be fair to the maintenance guy, like as a human being, I don't like change either, right? But because I'm going to resist it as much as I possibly can, that's kind of wired into our DNA. But then you get into like the leadership perspective, and Todd Orchside wrote a really good article. If I'm not saying it right, apologies. He wrote a really good article about about a couple weeks back in his newsletter, talking about like leadership and buy-in. Like I think his was about managing your owners, but ultimately, if you've got an initiative that you need to deploy and you can't deploy it because your people need buy-in, that's kind of a leadership gap. Any way you look at it. And so I'm finding that sometimes we talk about deploying technology, there's a pushback that people won't take it. Like I haven't had the courage to bring that up because like usually I'm talking to my buyer. Like, that's kind of something you say over drinks, but like, it's like, do you feel, I got to think of the question that I can structure it so they can acknowledge that this is a leadership gap? Because there seems to be like this real apprehension to deploying field tech that's innovative because the field may resist it. There's 2 problems there. Like we're not drafting the offer to the field tech in a way that benefits them. And then secondly, like which I think is a very that's a well thought through way of doing things. And secondly, who's the boss here? Like ultimately, that's the part that I think that we see a lot of gaps on, is that there's an unfamiliarity with being authoritative around outcomes, And the old way doesn't work anymore. Like the old way of inspecting, maintenance, triaging, all this stuff, it's killing these people. And so like the choice of maintaining the status quo has had an erosional effect on their life. And I would go even as far. This is a thing that has kind of popped up in the conversation yesterday, with respect to the pushback on AI, is that if I'm a tech and I can do conventionally 2 inspections a day, and using zInspector, another product, I can get to 4 inspections a day, or maybe 6 inspections a day. Conceptually, you've produced more output. Conceptually, you're more valuable to that organization. Conceptually, you should get paid more. And so the only path to getting a higher paycheck, it's not more jobs, it's more productivity. Mike Brower, who's the boss here? It's productivity. It's how do we drive a higher productive tech and how do we make it in their interest?
Yeah.
Right. Because like, that's the part that I'm finding that we're also trading off the opportunity for change versus the design for just Mark Brower versus the design for an outcome, right? Because like if I want to create change within my organization, it's fair to think through how I'm going to present that change. But this is not a diplomacy here. This is a dictatorship. And like it or not, I get to make the rules. And so like those are the things that I find complicated in leadership roles, is that they don't answer the bell when it comes to change. And I feel that I had this conversation last night. I don't know if you know Kirk Downey, and we're chatting about maintenance as a revenue center. And I've got this hypothesis statement that is yet to be untested, unproven, has 0 data. So it's like purely opinion based, that if maintenance were to emerge as a revenue center, you might actually see a totally different approach to maintenance. Again, untested, unqualified, strictly an opinion. But like, how would that change the way we do things? How would that change inspections? If inspections is a revenue item, we might be more conscious of the fact that, hey, if my guy was doing 4 inspections a day instead of 2 inspections a day, I just doubled my revenue off of that resource. That changes the mentality around the reason to do things versus, hey, if I just go get these 2 inspections done today, I did my job. It's like on a revenue-based side of things, like there's always more that you can go capture versus on cost savings, just do your job and don't be too expensive. I find that's a part that's like really complicated. I was having this discussion yesterday around like the things that we sell, you and I, is we're selling into maintenance and selling into operations. We're selling into cost savings and efficiency. But we've had some deals that have been really gone fast recently that have all been revenue related. And I just get so jazzed up talking on these revenue related use cases because it's just like, this is how this should feel.
Oh yeah. I mean, the second someone realizes that efficiency is happening there, like I feel like I use that word efficiency, but it is exactly what it is. Like if you have that productivity rising that much, because that's increasing, everything else can scale a little bit better too. Now, as the business owner, that's awesome when they can realize that. But like we're saying, it's getting that buy-in from those frontline guys that are doing things. How do we get them to do that much better? I think that ties back in with Todd's perspective. I love Todd. I know that when he hires someone, everyone on his team that he's hiring, they do the little, I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's one of those personality things. And
the personality index. Yeah, I think he does CI. He does CI because I know that DD Lamb does CI as well. He was on our show with her. Yeah.
And that's like on your maintenance team, obviously you want people that are go-getters to get things done. But are you getting the right type of person on that team that's also kind of the team player that is going to contribute to the efforts of everyone as the business keeps changing? A lot of these operators, like, they need to fill a seat as fast as they can. So they go with the first guy that raises his hand for the job. And that's not going to be the best way to help, drive this type of efficiency down the road. If the guy's just filling that seat, trying to get his paycheck, he's not the one that's going to buy in on that type of solution.
And that's the part that I think is really difficult when you consider the competition for talent in this world for maintenance techs and inspection techs. I'll put them in the same category. Like just chatting today, I was talking about the 4 horsemen in maintenance, right? And 4 horsemen in maintenance being this kind of came from an expression of a prior colleague of mine. It starts with talent, and then it gets into delays, and then it gets into cost, and then it gets into churn, right? Those are the four horsemen. If you don't, those four horsemen are present in your business, you have a red alert emergency that needs to be mitigated, because you cannot undo that momentum around those things. Particularly when you get into the cost side and the churn piece of those four horsemen, ultimately you're dealing with compressed availability of resources to solve problems, right?
Yep.
And like the one thing that we were just chatting about the last couple weeks and talking about, like, when you consider it a maintenance and inspection perspective, you're not only competing against like the other property managers in your area, and you're in Georgia, so like you feel this really painfully. You're competing also against the private equity firms that are buying, like HVAC and trade companies, right? So like I said today in a talk, like Brookfield owns the buildings and Brookfield owns the trades. So how does that feel to be in the middle of Brookfield on both sides, right? And then you've got Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and et cetera, building data centers in your neighborhood. They're paying electricians like $270,000 a year, right? So that's gone as well. And then, oh, by the way, the military wants to hire 400,000 plumbers by 2031, right, to fill in their gap just to maintain their existing operations. Okay, so it's like that line from Moneyball, right? There's like rich teams, poor teams, 50 feet of crap, and then there's the open A's. It kind of feels like that in a lot of cases, because you got to sit there and play the game differently, because there's no way that you're going to beat them at their game. It's just it's a law of nature. And so trying to mobilize around efficiencies that, let them be inefficient at what they're going to do, because they're going to be able to pay more, and they can pay for inefficiency. I don't see a world where SFR, BTR can choose inefficiency because of a lack of stones. I'll say it. It's our show to step up and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this differently." That's the part that I'm finding really, in terms of hell yes, it's like finding those that have the buying authority, the conviction on a new path, and I think to your point is really valid around building a team that is having built a team that is willing to understand the results of the change and the net benefit to them. Because ultimately, I don't see a world where they can get paid more if we don't get efficient.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, ask anyone with their own in-house maintenance team, like margins on that side of things, like the service world, are ridiculously slim as it is. So like we talked about earlier, turning that into like an actual revenue opportunity for people, that's really difficult to do. There's quite a few, like before my tech world experience, I was with an office furniture firm where I sold the furniture. My expectation on the office furniture was to get as high of margin as possible, because my installation team was going to eat my margins because they're negative. They were going to cost me money on that deal. That's the same way with like really maintenance out there. Like these guys, if you're paying them like what, $20-$30 an hour, some great states and great guys that have a lot of experience, maybe up closer to that 40 range. That's how much is that costing the business owner, and where's that efficiency? Like, how do you get that type of efficiency to really drive that margin so that you guys can actually make money off of that? And what is that the magic you have to charge for that while keeping
and it comes down
happy?
Yeah, and it comes down to the conversation of like, what kind of output are you getting for that? Like, I think that's the thing that's missing a little bit in, and I'll say that the turns, the inspections, the maintenance side of things, is the output relationship to salary and wage is mismatched or murky or unclarified, because it's just a little sloppy when it comes down to tracking the output of that function. Like, it's not a person, it's not a leader, it's just that function it doesn't have a military approach to solving and tracking the output. And so if I'm a manager and I don't understand the scope of the output, then I find it very difficult to lobby for a higher wage scale for that role. So I think that what's interesting is that for those that don't want to be tracked, but are upset with their pay scale, the only way to get there is to become measurable. And it comes into what you guys offer, right? Is an ability to actually track that productivity at the inspector level and increase the output by automating a lot of the admin. And it's kind of like when you talk about it and that sort of a pitch, like, I don't think anybody's saying if you do this and become more productive, you can you can get paid more. You won't get paid more, but you can become more productive. It means you can get paid more. And that's just like, that conversation is a very scary conversation to have from a property manager perspective. And I just don't see that as being so scary in their industries.
I mean, it's got to start somewhere. So like in my brain, the first thing I can think of is like, hey, if you're not tracking some of these things, at least like have these individuals track some sort of metrics, like create some scale of metrics for these guys to even just start having these conversations about. Whether or not they're actually reporting them is the next thing. Like you got to track your KPIs, but also, report them and keep people accountable to that side of things. That's the other side of the equation. If you're not tracking things, get it started and then ease into the, okay, how do we get this reporting down, create some accountability around it as well. And maybe there's that opportunity to really, once you can drive that efficiency, hey, yes, you've been doing great at completing all those inspections. That's the opportunity to say, hey, let's take a look at your pay. You've been created this efficiency, and now we can increase your pay scale a little bit. That conversation's got to happen first. So like, you really get those metrics and KPIs in place in some way, which for maintenance teams is really difficult to do, but at the same time, it's totally possible.
Well, if you don't do it, I don't see the case. Like the break glass moment is that like ultimately we don't have the people to do the work, and we are, the technology exists, but the ability to the desire to deploy the technology wholesomely is blocked by the apprehension to change. And will they still like me after we've deployed it? Like, it's like, come on, when you look back at some of the work that you've done over the past, and certainly some of the startups you've been a part of, like, what's a bit of advice you'd give yourself as you kind of begin to look back, maybe a restart or some, maybe even a younger Tim with respect to your career and getting to hell yes?
I think I think like really just the last thing I was talking about is like find things to track better. Like in my head now, I've learned 15 years into my professional career, like I'm a data junkie. I love having numbers and data that I can analyze that really drive outcome. Find out what those things are. For me, it's always kind of stemmed off like my first SDR job I mentioned. It was really conversations and dials were the KPIs that I was measuring. But at the same time, bringing that over into every single other role that I've done. Marketing, obviously, you've got all the different touches that you have with contacts and leads and things like that. And now with partnerships and things like that, it's really what kinds of metrics can we keep in place with, keeping our customers happy? What percentage of our customers that have this integration are being really successful with it? What percent of our customers aren't even using that integration yet? They could be using it. Those types of conversations, like if I can really get my grasp on what's going on around me in terms of metrics, that's what my brain loves, and it makes me happy. And that's what really drives me to be motivated to do better and increase those things to make everyone better off.
Love it. So stick to the numbers, know your business, and understand what moves them, right? Amazing. Who should we talk to next on the show?
I got to give a shout out to my best friend. I don't know if you ever talked to him before, but Jonathan Cook.
All right. I do not know Jonathan Cook.
He's been in the PM world for quite a while. He's got started in real estate back in like 2008, I want to say, 2007.
All right.
But he's been on the operator side, and now he's on the tech side himself. So he works for APM Help. APM
Help. All right. I'd love to chat with him. I might lead on you for an intro. I'll ping him out first directly to see if he bites, and if not, I'll reach out to you for an intro.
My pleasure. He's my best friend.
Thank you. All right. There's a conviction right there. I appreciate that. Well, thank you everyone for listening today. Thanks a lot, Tim, for your insights and conversation. Certainly, dynamic with respect to talking about the metrics that matter, how we want to get there, understanding the change that relates to the leadership side of things, and then how can we bring efficiency to such an important part of property management that's getting homes to people, right? If we don't do this, there's some massive gaps in solving the housing problem. Thank you for all your time. If everyone's listening today, catching this on the LinkedIn, obviously add your comments later. Both of us will get pinged on that. And if you listen to the podcast, like it, subscribe it, more people find out about us. Thank you everybody for listening. As always, it's brought to you by IRCX, remote maintenance and inspection software for property management. And if you have any questions about that, shoot me a link. Thanks for listening. Tim, thanks for being a guest today. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye. Where is end?